Sometimes the biggest safeguarding risk is not one shocking act. Sometimes it is poor practice slowly becoming normal and nobody challenging it before it is too late. And that is why this case is so deeply upsetting. And that is why it should make every early years setting stop and think. Like many people in early years, I found this story heartbreaking. A 14-month-old little boy, Noah Sabanda, died after dangerous sleep practice at nursery. From the reporting, he was placed face down, wrapped tightly, and force was used while staff tried to make him sleep. He was then not physically checked for around 2 hours. That is hard to hear, and even harder to imagine what his family have been through. But as upsetting as this is, I do think we have to ask a difficult question. How does something like this happen in a place that is meant to keep children safe? Because when you read the details, it does not sound like one sudden moment that came out of nowhere. It sounds as though poor practice may have become normal. That, for me, is one of the most important parts of this case, because if poor practice starts to feel ordinary, children are at real risk. This stops being not only about one person, it becomes about a culture. It becomes about what people are seeing every day. It becomes about what gets challenged and what gets ignored. And it becomes about whether leaders really know what is happening when they're not in the room. I also think this says something important about new staff. When somebody joins a setting, they do not only learn from policies, training and induction and paper. They learn from what they see. They watch how routines are carried out. They watch how children are handled. They watch what happens when a child will not settle. And if poor practice is already happening, they may think this must be how it's done here, or they may feel uncomfortable but not confident enough to speak up. Or they may worry about upsetting somebody, getting it wrong, or making trouble. And that is how unsafe culture can carry on. Not always because everyone agrees with it, sometimes because nobody feels able to stop it. I also think many registered persons and leaders will recognise another difficult truth here. Most people do trust the staff they employ. Of course they do. They want to believe their team is kind, capable and safe. And in many cases, that trust feels reasonable. But this case is a reminder that trust on its own is not enough, not in safeguarding. Because the question cannot only be, do I trust my staff? It also has to be, if something was not right in one of our rooms, how would I know? Would somebody speak up? Would a newer member of staff feel able to say, this does not feel right? Would a concern be written down? Would it be taken seriously? Would anyone spot a pattern? And would action happen quickly enough? Now, I want to be careful here. Software cannot watch a room. Software cannot replace good judgment. Software cannot stop harm all by itself. And on the button would not somehow reveal unsafe practice that nobody had reported. So I would never say a system on its own would have prevented something like this. But I would say this. Cases like this show why settings need more than policies sitting in a folder. They need proper training. They need leaders who check what practice really looks like. They need staff who know what safe practice is. They need a culture where people can question what they see. And they need a clear way to raise concerns and act on them. That is where On the Button fits. Safer sleeping is a mandatory part of our staff training matrix, so leaders can see clearly whether that training is in place, missing or overdue. And that matters because if safer sleep is treated as something people just pick up as they go along, the risk becomes greater. On the Button can also help settings make expectations clearer. It can help show what staff should know, what training they have done, and where the gaps are. It gives staff a proper route to raise concerns if something does not feel right. That could be about practice in a room. It could be about the way a child is being handled. And it could be about something that feels small on its own, but still does not sit comfortably. And once concerns are raised, they do not have to stay as bits of conversation or worries held in someone's head. They can be recorded, they can be seen, they can be reviewed, they can be followed up, and patterns can be spotted. Because serious problems do not always begin with one big obvious moment. Very often they build over time. A shortcut here, concern there, something that felt wrong but was never written down, something repeated but never joined up, something accepted because nobody stopped to question it. That is why strong early years safeguarding is not just about having policies. It's about what happens every day. It is about whether safe practice is really understood, whether people feel able to speak, whether leaders are listening, and whether action happens before poor practice becomes normal. If this case has made you stop and think about your own setting, your own team, your own systems, that is exactly why we created our new safeguarding quiz. It's a simple way to reflect on whether the basics are really in place, not just on paper, but in practice. Because sometimes the most important question is not, do we care? It is, how would we know if something was starting to go wrong? If you'd like to take the quiz, it's on our website, but I'll put the link below. It may spot some gaps. It may help you ask better questions. It may stop something more serious happening.